You're listening to episode 168 of Lifestyle Locker Radio with Dr. Kyrin Dunston. Hi, I'm Dr. Josh Hant, and welcome to Lifestyle Locker Radio, where we help you create an awesome life and lifestyle. From nutrition to fitness, mindfulness to peak performance, and relationships to money mindset, we bring you on an amazing journey to help you unleash your human potential. So here's a little bit about our guest today, Dr. Kyrin Dunston. She has been leading by example and lost a life-changing 100 pounds and healed herself from chronic disease by addressing the root causes of her overweight and dysfunction. This personal transformation in turn caused a professional one, and she left her OBGYN practice in 2011 to pursue helping women heal with this revolutionary type of natural medicine after becoming a fellowship trained in anti-aging, metabolic, and functional medicine. Dr. Kyrin's book, Cracking the Bikini Code, 6 Secrets to Permanent Weight Loss Success, brought her an official natural weight and health restoration program to women everywhere. The virtual bootcamp program, based on the book, launched shortly after and offers hands-on guidance by Dr. Kyrin from remote locations so that women can use these tools to heal and move towards brilliant health. Dr. Kyrin has been featured on numerous podcasts and summits and on NBC, Fox, Reader's Digest, Huffington Post, First for Women, and Best Self magazines. As the host of her Brilliant Health radio podcast, she offers interviews with inspiring and insightful experts in functional medicine for women desiring to heal and achieve optimum health naturally. As the host of the Menopause Boss YouTube series, Dr. Dunston educates and inspires women to take control of their bodies and their lives to thrive in menopause, not just survive. She guides women through the exact steps she uses with private clients in her Menopause Boss Jumpstart virtual coaching program so they can correct the root causes of menopause breakdown and begin regaining energy, losing weight, and feeling like themselves again. Dr. Dunston has been board certified in OBGYN for more than 20 years and is a fellowship-trained anti-aging metabolic and functional medicine by the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. She received her Bachelor of Science in Psychology at Bryn Mawr College, and received her doctorate in medicine from Jefferson Medical College in Philadelphia and completed her residency in OBGYN at the Medical Center of Delaware. She resides in Georgia with her 2 dogs, Otis and Carly. Without further ado, here is our guest today, Dr. Kyrin Dunston. Hey everyone, welcome back to Lifestyle Locker Radio. As you heard, we have an amazing guest today. Dr. Kyrin, welcome.
Thank you so much, Josh, for having me.
So Dr. Kyrin's got a really unique story, a really unique perspective on health based on her past. She's come down a road, which you're going to hear more about, and actually had some health issues while she was working as an OBGYN, which led her to start searching for different ways to take care of herself, which ultimately now led to taking care of other people this way, right?
Yes, absolutely. As a board certified OBGYN, I was helping lots of women with health problems and really got to a place where I felt like I wasn't really helping anyone to achieve optimum health. Sure, maybe the symptom that they were having went away based on the medication that I gave them or the surgery that I did. But I had gotten to a place where I realized that we weren't really helping people achieve health. And that was true for myself because I actually weighed 243 pounds. I had chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia. I had anxiety and depression and no sex drive, hair falling out, and the list just went on and on. And here I am supposed to know everything there is to know about women's health, and I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me and help myself achieve health. So it was through discovering functional medicine and really addressing the root cause of the issues for myself and for my patients that really moved the needle and helped me to transform and become truly healthy.
Okay, so just take us on that journey a little bit, because I think this is really interesting. You know, you're just saying, yeah, I weighed this much and I lost this much weight. That's a big deal. Like for anybody listening, go, wait, you lost how much weight and you got rid of all of these things and you did it by changing what?
Right. So by changing, well, about everything. So I was taught in a school of medicine that basically teaches symptom management. So if you can't sleep, here's some Ambien to knock you out and put you to sleep. So symptoms stopped, and by mainstream medicine standards, then you are cured. But in functional medicine, we know that there's a reason why you can't sleep, and it's usually multifactorial. Many different hormones go into creating good sleep, as well as good nutrition and lack of toxicity. And so in functional medicine, we look at hormone levels. What are they? And if they're abnormal, why are they abnormal? And balance them. So I had been going about, and I don't mean to say it lightly, about the health challenges I had, because they were so bad that at one point I really thought that if this is what my life is going to be, I don't think that I want to live it. So it was very serious, and it was very prolonged, and I felt very helpless and very hopeless. And I know there are probably people listening now who can relate to that and are having health challenges where they don't have answers and they wonder if there are answers. And I was really in a place where I thought there weren't any. And then it was actually one of my patients who introduced me to functional medicine, because she was having similar health problems that women at midlife do. And I had given her the typical sleeping pill, birth control pill, antidepressant. Many women listening can probably relate to that, leaving the doctor's office with a fist full of prescriptions. And she went away and came back because those things weren't really helping her. And a year later, I saw her and she was like a new person. And she told me she had been to a doctor who practiced functional medicine. And she really was I call her my angel, person who initiated me into knowing about functional medicine. And so once I learned about it, I started investigating, well, what is root cause resolution medicine? And started doing the special tests that we do in functional medicine to do salivary hormone testing. What were my hormone levels? And even though I had checked my thyroid at least 10 times and it was quote unquote normal, when I did the full spectrum of tests and I read them the right way, looking for optimal values, not normal, I discovered that I did have a low functioning thyroid, even though the tests that I initially had done said I was normal. And I had discovered with salivary hormone testing that I had a progesterone deficiency, which is very common with women starting around age 35 to 40. And definitely by the time we're 50, 85% of us have a progesterone deficiency. And I had lots of inflammation. I did functional stool testing and food sensitivity testing, two types of tests that I had not been trained in my residency and wasn't privy to, and had lots of gastrointestinal inflammation and something called a leaky gut, lots of food sensitivities. And so when I eliminated the foods I was sensitive to and did what I call gut rehab, balanced my hormones, then really the weight just started coming off. And so that's one of my main messages to people. And that's one of the things I cover in my book, Cracking the Bikini Code, is that when you address the root causes, the weight comes off naturally. It's not a struggle. And I like to tell people I didn't even exercise when I first started doing this type of medicine because I had such severe adrenal fatigue that I really couldn't exercise. So just by taking the supplements, balancing my hormones, changing how I was eating, the weight started coming off and all of these symptoms started resolving. And it took a good 2 years, so it wasn't overnight. But my message to women is really that when you treat the root causes and you restore balance, that the health symptoms that you're having, whether it's insomnia, fatigue, weight issues, or maybe you've already been diagnosed with something like an autoimmune disorder, or you have irritable bowel or Crohn's or ulcerative colitis. Really, the list is so long. So all health issues, if you think about them, they're really like the leaves on a tree, come from the same root causes, the roots of the tree. So when you treat the roots, then all the leaves improve.
Yeah. So I want to circle back to an important word that I think is so
Yeah.
powerful, which most of us in health, or that are searching for health, I should say, don't really think of. You mentioned like, oh, we have symptoms. And that's how a lot of people will want to take care of themselves, whether it's medication or even they may even just supplement to remove a symptom. But you mentioned the word why. The why behind doing all this stuff is getting down to the root cause, to getting to the actual reasons why you're getting sick, not just kind of plucking those leaves of symptoms and trying to figure out what's going on that way. So it's very powerful when you actually can dive in and learn what's going on versus just, I don't want to be in pain, so to say. I mean, there's a pill for that, but why? Why are you in pain? Why are you obese? Why are you, all of those things? And it's powerful that you were able to take such control. I mean, I know we said not an overnight fix, and most people think that magic bullet, there's no such thing, right? Health is a
Right.
journey.
That's right.
Healing is a journey. You are living, breathing proof that you can have a 180-degree turn and come out the other side like a brand new person. Like your angel, you saw your patient that came to you. You're like, holy cow, what are you doing that I am not doing?
Right, exactly. And so I learned more from her than I did in residency. And I think that why is the biggest question. It's the most important question. I sometimes tell patients that in functional medicine, we're like toddlers. Why? Why? Why?
Yeah.
Well, if the thyroid's low, why is it low? Well, it's low because iodine's low. Why is iodine low? Why?
Yeah.
And really, as a healer, that's the question I think that good healers ask is why, not necessarily just what is the diagnosis and what
Exactly.
drug do I need to give you. That only gets you band-aids. And most of us in our country at this point, I mean, by the time we're over the age of 50, the majority of us are on 5 or more prescription medications. So it really is an epidemic of band-aids.
Yeah.
And so we're on something for our blood pressure. We're on something for our blood sugar control because we might have diabetes. We're on something for our cholesterol. We're on something to sleep, and we're on pain medicine.
Yeah.
And none of that is addressing the why. And so in functional medicine, we want to get to the why and fix it. One, because it ameliorates the symptoms.
Mhm.
So that the blood pressure does come down and cholesterol naturally comes down and blood sugar restores and sometimes diabetes reverses. So the symptoms go away. But two, because those same imbalances that are causing those disease diagnoses requiring those medications are also causing other imbalances that will become diseases if they are not treated.
Yes.
And so basically all diseases come from some degree of inflammation in the
Mhm.
body, where I like to call it rust, because then people say
Okay.
they get rust.
Yeah.
And if you can get rid of the inflammation and get rid of the rust, then you're reducing your risk of things like cancer, which out of 2 of us will get in our lifetime.
Yeah.
And I don't know
Scary.
about you, but I really don't care to get cancer.
No.
So it's great that I lost the weight. It's great that I healed my energy problems and all these other issues I was having. But also in the process, I've reduced my risk of getting other diseases, including cancers. And that's why I love working with women like this. When I do work in group programs, one of the main things that I do is educate them that you're healing the whole body, the whole system. So you're reducing your risk of all diseases.
Mhm. Right. We're a living, breathing, we're an organism that requires all of those parts to work symbiotically. It's not that we're a heart or we're a lung or we're
Right.
a leg muscle, right? And I think there are people who have thought that for so many years because there have become so many specialties in medicine. It's like I have to go to the heart doctor, or I have to go to the lung doctor, or I have to go to the digestion doctor. And they think that we're just pieces like a car, and we're like this amazing life form that coordinates and communicates, and it's like the best pharmacy in the world built in.
Yes, it is. And we have a very mechanistic view of our health, a la Newtonian physics.
Uh-huh.
And really there was this kind of split with medicine from other aspects of our world many years ago, and we really started viewing the body as a machine, just like a car, and we divided it up in pieces, and there's a specialty for each piece, and most pieces are not related to the others, but nothing could be further from the truth.
You're speaking
And
my language.
right, and I even go further and I include the energetic body that is this enlivened life force that energizes and animates every organ in the system and every part of our body. And that really has to be addressed as well, that chi prana life force. And we are not machines. We are so much more than machines. And it's time for us to start viewing the body as the complex system that it is. And I really think that that's this might be another topic, but the call of the failure of our current business model for how our healthcare is delivered, I think necessitates looking at root cause resolution and also looking at the fact that we're not machines.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, we're really vitalistic beings. We're not this robot or car, like the engine, the this, to that. And I love that you say that because I talk to my patients about this when we talk about the different body parts and everything's interconnected and all of these things. And I said, well, what's the difference between a living, breathing human being and a corpse? All of the parts are still there. If we're a machine, then I should be able to jumpstart that steak, right? Like, exactly. No, it doesn't work that way. There is that life that's in there that needs to be expressed fully. And all the stuff that we do, whether it's food or movement, it affects our that life force, but it affects the way it interacts with the human body. Like this is all flesh and beat and right and bone and blood and water and all this stuff, but there is something that makes it all work, and that's where I think we lose.
Right, and which is the soul to me, or the spirit, whatever you want to call it, but it is that unique life force that animates the physical body, that is present when you're alive and goes away when you're no longer alive. And that really needs to be addressed. So that's why one of the pillars that I address with people is, I call it the mental, emotional, spiritual pillar. So it's the thoughts you think and the feelings you feel and the spiritual aspects of life. And I always have to tell people, I'm not talking about religion. That's totally separate.
Agreed.
But science has really now bridged that your spirit is something that has a force, and that prayer has power when it comes to health. And it can be measured, this spiritual life force in our bodies. And looking at how the emotions can have blockages that can block that life force from flowing freely through the body and can manifest as pain or disease is something that I'm very interested in, and I really help to educate people in, because I think that not only mainstream medicine, but also sometimes the functional folks really leave the emotional, spiritual piece out in the cold. And for me, I'm always asking, I really see my journey as being a healer. I don't think that I went through all the challenges, health challenges that I went through for no reason. And my MD is one tool that I can use to help people to heal. But since I got on this journey, I've realized that it's so much more. And so I've explored many more modalities of healing, and I incorporate them into the care that I provide. Of course, whatever is appropriate for that person, but really recognizing that the mental, emotional, spiritual self, the energetic body, is a part of that, I think is crucial. And oftentimes the missing piece that stops people from healing.
And I want to turn back to some of the nutrition in a second, but I love that you're on this topic. We talk about like stress, like not the physical stress, not like I stubbed my toe type of stress. It affects our physiology, and everybody knows when they're stressed, they usually feel crappy. It makes them feel more depressed, which changes their physiology even more. And they go down this downward spiral. Then they're eating crappy. Then they're not moving. And we can just keep going deeper and deeper. So that headspace, if you will, or beyond, I think is where we need to start with a lot of people, because if they're not willing to change that, we could do everything with them and they're just going to keep themselves down unless we can clear certain things out.
Right. So true. And so all types of stressors are mediated through the cortisol system in the adrenal glands. And whether it's blood sugar stress is one type of stress, or chemical stress in the body. But then there's the psychosocial stress, is
Yeah.
what you're talking about. And I think that's huge in our environment right now. I know it was for me, and that was probably a big part of why I was so ill. I mean, getting up in the middle of the night to deliver babies, and just what that does to your mind, where
Yeah.
you're constantly on call and have lack of control over your environment, and a baby getting ready to be delivered is but a potentially dangerous situation. So I had lots of stress in my life, and I think that that really compounded the health issues I
Mm.
was having. And so I call it Queen Cortisol. And I I used to call it King Cortisol. And then one day I said, well, I work mostly with women. Why do I call it King Cortisol?
Exactly.
Queen Cortisol. So that's something that I really educate people about, because our stress response system, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, really developed many, many years ago and really helped us to survive when we lived in the wilderness and maybe we could be chased by a tiger. But the problem is that our brain doesn't differentiate between the types of stressors that we encounter in 2019 compared to a long time ago. So being 20 cars back at a light and an hour late for work is a tiger chasing us, and our body responds the same way and kicks off our HPA axis. And most of us encounter these types of stressors multiple
Oh
times a
God.
day, with at
Yeah.
home and taking care of kids and getting out on time and traffic and getting to work and work reviews and colleagues at work, and just all the interfaces that we have. I mean, the amount of data that we come in contact with in different people today in one day, I've heard it estimated is that people didn't come in contact with that much information and people in 5 years.
Wow. I believe it.
Years ago. So we're inundated with information, and we don't have time to process it necessarily intellectually or emotionally. And our HPA axis is constantly being ticked off, not to mention that our media is constantly feeding us
Of
fear,
course.
things to be afraid of, the economy, oh my gosh. And this is why I have to I do a media diet, basically a media fast.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't watch the news or read the paper. I just have certain sources where I go to get the important information, because I don't want to have my HPA axis kicked off all the time
Yeah.
and live in a state of fear. But working with people with their health, it is so key to help them recognize. I have a test that I do in my office that I love, that's called it's a Nerve Express. It's made by Nerve Express, and it assesses the autonomic nervous system. So
Ooh,
it's called
very
heart
cool.
rate variability test.
I love it. Love it.
And it basically looks at the heart rate variability. And so it's a way that I can get an objective assessment, not of heart function. So this is something I really have to help people to understand. It's not a measure of your heart function. It's a measure of your autonomic nervous system function, which regulates your heart rate and the variability of your heart rate. And so stress affects primarily your autonomic nervous system, which then affects all of your organs, because the autonomic nervous system is what innervates these organs. So sympathetic is part of your stress response system, and it'll make your heart rate go up, for instance, and parasympathetic will make your heart rate go down. And it's also what you need to stimulate for healing to occur. So parasympathetic nervous system brings blood flow to the internal organs, and it's the rest and digest and heal and restore. You can only heal when your parasympathetic nervous system is activated. When your sympathetic stress response system is activated, you cannot heal. Blood goes to your periphery, and it increases your strength and your speed and your visual acuity and your ability to run from a tiger, but it's not going to help you heal. So I love this instrument because it helps me tell someone in black and white and show them, this is what stress is doing to your body, and this is why you're not healing. Because I'd say the vast majority of people I test on this machine, their sympathetic response is perpetually high. Even when they're at rest, their sympathetic tone is so high. And their parasympathetic is so depleted that it's even sometimes a stress on the body, although the person may not register this consciously, to stand up. So we do the test laying down and then supine and then standing up. And we can test both branches in the different positions. And so I can see what the stress of standing up does to them. And I can't tell you how many people I see, Josh, who not only their sympathetic is already in overdrive just when they're laying down, quote unquote, resting, but their parasympathetic is just depleted, and standing up is such a stressor that their sympathetic goes even higher. So if you're listening, you may not register this, but I love this test because I can show it to people. And then there are so many things that we can do to start to calm down and dampen that stress response, that cortisol, the sympathetic outflow, and really bolster the parasympathetic nervous system. And one of my favorites is meditation. I know some people say, oh my gosh, man, I can't shut my brain off. If you can't shut your brain off, that is a huge sign that you need to shut your brain off.
Yeah. I want to tell you something cool after you say this with HRV.
So that's one of my favorite tests for working with stress. Yeah.
Yeah. So with HRV, I love that you mentioned meditation and stress. I'm not sure if you know Emily Fletcher.
Yeah.
So I've done all of her meditation courses. A raving fan of hers. And I wear a device that gives me 24-hour HRV, very different than obviously what you're using in a clinical setting, but I measure it all day, every day. And once I was doing a 2x a day meditation, not these hour long, like 15 to 20 minute meditations. And I'm training for an ultra marathon. So I have high stressors in my life, physical, mental, all the above. My HRV started to go up and up and up and up, which most people, their body breaks down if they're overly taxed. But because of meditation and rest and eating the right way, my HRV started going up, and will hopefully be using some of the data from my HRV for some of her, I'm sure using a research paper or something, but on HRV health and meditation. So it's unreal that you can measure that sitting or lying down in the standing and have some profound differences in two positions.
Yes, it is. And I love, the marathon training, you probably do more prolonged, steady state, but high intensity interval training can help with your
I do that as well.
Nervous system. So that's very helpful. And then holotropic breath work is something that I have people do, as well as the meditation, float tanks, tapping. I mean, there's so many tools that you can use, just being out in nature, getting in the flow state with a hobby that you can use. And sometimes I'll recommend HeartMath has a little monitor you can do for heart rate variability. I'm wondering which one it is you're using.
I use an Aura ring.
Oh, yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah. And another thing, we used to do HRV in my chiropractic office. The device is a little older now. We were doing this about 10 years ago to measure autonomic tone and balance. And it was wild having people, because we weren't the nutritionist. I wasn't their other doctor. I was just their chiropractor. So we'd measure them and start getting them adjusted and, lead them in directions of a healthy lifestyle, and their autonomic tone would change to more balance. So their body could either jump to that fight or flight or jump to that parasympathetic when they need. And I think it's, we're dealing with the central nervous system.
Right. And the other aspect I love about that test is what it tells you about nutrition, because in one area you get your power of your high frequency systems and your low frequency systems. Fancy terms for basically what I say is it tells you how much juice you have in the autonomic nervous system, in the nerves that are bringing the information to the heart. So it tells you how much juice you've got in your parasympathetic nervous system, how much juice you've got in your sympathetic. And a lot of times you should have a number 7,000 plus as a total power, so your total juice. But I'll see people 100, 200. And so
they're just breaking down.
Right. It means that you don't have enough of the building blocks to make the neurotransmitters. And so the neurotransmitters are primarily made out of amino acids, vitamins, and minerals, but amino acids are the backbones. And so what does that mean? It means either you're not ingesting enough, although most people ingest plenty of protein, which is what amino acids are derived from. But what it really means is that they're not breaking the proteins down. They're not digesting them properly to get the amino acids in. And so gut dysfunction is one of the biggest functional problems when it comes to overall health, because if you're not breaking your proteins down into amino acids and absorbing them, then you don't have enough neurotransmitters to run a healthy autonomic nervous system. So this is another aspect that I love this test because it gives you so much information. And then it'll also give you indicators when you may have mineral deficiencies, because then the conduction is abnormal. And so I just love this test. I think every doctor's office should have this test, but really it tends to be mostly doctors like us who are concerned with root cause resolution, because then we can counsel you about stress management and nutrition and things like that.
Yeah. So I like that you bring in the nutrition aspect with the HRV, because I've seen a lot of the research, but I've only seen it more on my world within the chiropractic world. So can you go a little bit more into like how that testing works with that? Because I think this is powerful for people, because healing, like we said, is an inside out job, and with functional medicine and your testing and then the HRV, and you mentioned the gut, can you kind of bring all of that together just in simple terms, just so how, like, if I came in, I'm hyper stressed, I work in finance or whatever it is, right? Like I'm burning up like 100 hours a week, and I'm a woman, right? Right? How would I come in to you and it's like, what are the steps? What do we do?
Right. Great question. So I usually start, well, of course, by just doing a full medical history, and that's not your typical 2 or 3 page doctor's history. I have a 27-page medical history, where, yes, I care if your mom breastfed you or not, because that has implications for your microbiome and whether you were C-section or vaginal delivery. So it's very detailed over your lifespan and over your parents' lifespan and your ancestors as to what environmental exposures you have, what genetics you might have, and what lifestyle factors you have. So that's really a big part of the evaluation, as well as a physical exam. But the physical exam is usually more to confirm what we already suspect. So most times I can talk to somebody for an hour and really have a good idea about what imbalances are going on. And it's really this ability to take in all the information and pattern recognition. Because dysfunction in root causes typically occurs in patterns. It doesn't happen in isolated areas. I love to do the heart rate variability as well as the body composition analysis, which I do something called a phase angle in that as well, which I call my cellular health test, which is probably a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
And I call those tests, the HRV and the BIA, my whole body thermometers. So just like when you go to any doctor, they're going to do your temperature, your pulse, your respiratory rate, and your blood pressure. Those are what they call the vital signs. Well, in functional medicine, we have more vital signs, and I call the HRV and BIA more of my vital signs. Because it really gets to the heart of what is going on functionally in your body, because it's really your nervous system that runs everything. So if your nervous system becomes fried, then you're in big trouble. It's kind of like the electrical system in a car, although we already said we're not cars, but it's just a good analogy. And then usually there's some degree of further functional testing that's done. So for me in particular, because I deal with women, and we women have very intricate and delicate hormonal changes that occur every single month from the time we go through puberty till the time we go through menopause. There's so many things that can go wrong in such a varied, cyclic, intricate system that we usually do some form of salivary hormone testing to evaluate that. And we also usually look at cortisol tests, and we'll have cortisol because it has a diurnal variation where it's higher in the morning and then it goes down lower throughout the day. We'll check it 4 times in a day.
Okay. Wow.
And we will oftentimes have patients collect stool for functional stool testing. That's not what your regular doctor does. So we'll look at digestive enzyme levels, and we'll look at your good microflora, your good bacteria in the gastrointestinal tract. We'll look at your pathogenic bacteria. Do you have parasites? Do you have fungi? Things like this. We'll look at your levels of inflammation in the gastrointestinal tract. And then food sensitivity testing is really a staple of functional evaluation as well, because for most people who are having health problems, there are foods they're eating that they may not be allergic to. So that's a true allergy that might be to shellfish, where when you eat it, your throat could swell up and close and you could die. And that your regular doctor will evaluate and recognize, or a traditional allergist. But there are many different ways that your body can respond with an immune response to foods that you eat. So it's just like our military has many different branches. We got the Coast Guard, we got the Marines, we got the Army, etc. Your body has different ways that it can protect itself in the immune system. So IgE is your typical food allergen antibody, but you've also got IgG and IgA and cell-mediated immunity. And so different ways that you can mount an immune response to foods that aren't recognized by traditional medicine. But in functional medicine, we know that when your immune system becomes activated, it can cause inflammation, it can damage the gastrointestinal tract, and really be a key driver of inflammation in the body and gut abnormalities. And the gut is really intricately involved with the autonomic nervous system. So that'll be usually a part of the evaluation. So I'd say those are really the foundational tests. And then there are all kinds of other tests depending on what's going on with the individual that we may do. Heavy metal testing and other toxicology testing. We may do genetic testing, particularly for liver detoxification enzymes. We may do specific viral testing for Lyme or co-infections, things like that, molds. But that's kind of a foundational evaluation, but not everybody needs all of that. Usually they're just some foundational tests, and then we really get a good idea what's going on and what direction to go in.
Yeah, it's it's pretty thorough. You're really kind of just opening everything up and saying, where am I finding something that could be possibly causing, right, an issue? And when I come in and I have all of the tests done, those foundational tests done, and we get some results, are there supplements, or are you offering lifestyle shifts for people in other ways? How would you, I don't like to use the word treat so much, but I think you're helping people heal, right? Which is very powerful when they're healing from the inside out. So what type of recommendations usually come from, a test that has, XYZ that are bad? We'll say mild, like an average stressed human being that may be a little, not morbidly obese, but a little overweight, high stress, maybe a mom of like 3 kids, works the whole 9 yards.
Right. And so I usually look at what I call the 4 pillars, and my foundational pillar is hormone balance. And I usually address the 3 main metabolic drivers first. That's insulin, cortisol, and thyroid, and get those balanced. And sometimes we start with supplements. That's a part of it. Lifestyle is definitely a part of it. So diet and nutrition is always a cornerstone, because we literally are what we eat. And so if we're not getting high quality nutrients, and we're also not able to process them and break them down, then that's going to be, we can't heal if we don't have the right fuel. So I start with those 3 main ones, and then definitely the sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, because if they are awry, most women will feel miserable. I just ask any woman whose hormones are a little off, and maybe she has PMS or heavy painful periods, or she's in the perimenopause or menopausal, and it really can affect everything, including your mood and your cognitive functioning. So I find that most women feel 1,000 times better when you can balance their sex hormones, although that's not usually the only thing that you need to do. So I usually start with the hormonal balance balance because that represents communication in the body. So just like your nervous system is the hardwired communication system, hormones are your wireless internet communication system. And so you have to have good communication among the cells and from the brain to the cells for there to be coordination of effort, for there to be growth and repair, for there to be healthy functioning. So that's usually the first aspect of what I treat. And then I start doing the decreasing inflammation, which is also the same as toxicity, which the cornerstone of which is gut rehab, because that the gut is the center of the body, literally, and it's the center of your health figuratively. You know, Louis Pasteur said, all death begins in the colon, and it's really true. So you've got to have good function of the gut. Your gut represents the main component of your immune system. It's really your biggest interface with the external environment. I mean, when you think about it, most people think, oh, it's your skin. That's the biggest organ. That's the biggest interface with the external environment. But it's actually not. Your gut, if you take it and lay it out flat, is two doubles tennis courts. And you're taking the external environment and you're putting it inside of you, and it's interfacing with this tube. And so it really represents the main block of your immune system function, and that's where a lot of disorders occur. And it also is a cornerstone of your cortisol function. So in that second pillar, inflammation, toxicity, is gut rehab, and we really work on that. And there can be other sources of inflammation in the body, particularly chronic viral infections and molds. So we always look at those. And then my next pillar is nutrition. And 70% of Americans have nutritions. If you're sick, it's more likely 90%. And a lot of people are very deficient in things like amino acids because their gut health is so poor, or also micronutrients, vitamins and minerals. And so really replenishing them with sometimes oral supplementation, but sometimes we have to go to intravenous, because if the gut is not breaking food down and absorbing it properly, just putting supplements in, sometimes people can't absorb them. So we have to go to intravenous nutrition. And then as the enveloping pillar is the fourth pillar, mental, emotional, spiritual health that we talked about. And so for some people, it can seem kind of overwhelming. You've got health problems, you've got 3 kids, you're working in finances. And I say meditate. Sometimes women will just freak out and go, I don't have time to meditate. Like, what are you talking? And that was me back when I was the head of my household, the breadwinner, and I ran the medical practice and delivered thousands of babies in my career. So people would tell me, well, just meditate. And I think, are you insane? When can I meditate? How do you do that? And so I usually start by asking people, well, what's one thing that you could do before I start telling you things to do? Let's start taking things off your plate, or let's just brainstorm about what's one thing you could do. And, maybe she'll say, oh, well, my girls are in high school now. I could get them to help cook dinner instead of me having to do the whole thing myself. Okay, let's start with that. And so I usually just do a little at a time. Each time I see them and interact with them, what is one thing that you could do? I have an exercise that I do in one of my virtual programs, my virtual group programs that I love, where I have a calendar of the week, and I have people block off how they spend their time each week. And someone did this with me many, many years ago, and it was very eye-opening. So I incorporated that. And you have to include everything: travel, showering, getting dressed, TV time, everything that you do. And then you tally up how much time you spend each week in each activity. And then you also make a calendar where you say how you would like to spend your time. And then you compare the two. And for most of us, one, we're not spending all the time where we think we're spending it. And two, most of us are spending time in ways that are not aligned with our values. And I know nothing would be worse than to get to the end of your life and say, wow, I spent most of my time in traffic, in Atlanta, 2 hours a day, when I could have lived somewhere else or worked somewhere else and not had that time used. Or you're not spending the quality time you think you are with your children, or you're not giving any time to yourself to really live. You just become a productivity widget where you are making money. And so I think that calendar is really eye-opening, and I love it because it's not me telling anybody anything. It's people discovering for themselves and really unearthing what's important to them and maybe why they're having this stress that they're having. And then it gives the opportunity to really reevaluate based on their values. How do I want to spend my time, and in a way that's less stressful? Because when people's actions are aligned with their values, that decreases stress. A lot of our stress happens because our actions are not aligned with our values. So that's kind of a little bit about how I would start working with that.
I think I just listened to a doctor, Tony Robbins, and I'm trying to think who else all combined together. I mean, it's really awesome that the whole person is really looked at as a person. It's so important that we get to these root causes of our health. You mentioned health is important. If we don't have our health, we lose everything. Like, you can't spend time with your family. You can't use a lot of can'ts once you start to lose your health. So if you're listening and you're a woman, I should say, you got to look up Dr. Kyrin up and connect with her, because no matter if you're young, old, it doesn't make a difference. You're going to have to take care of your health at one point in your life, and it's better to do it before you lose it. Right? Would you agree?
Right. Yeah, I always say a lot of us spend our health creating wealth, and sometimes there's not enough wealth to recreate health. And so if you can stay on top of your health, and I'm not talking about just going to get your annual exams at the doctor, because that really isn't going to pick up root cause problems. But if you take care of the pebbles before they become boulders, before they become cancer, before they become autoimmune disease, then you really can preserve your health and I'm more energetic and vital and alive now than I was 20 years ago. And that can be true for you too. So, my words of wisdom are to get on it and stay on it. This is why I launched my podcast, Her Brilliant Health Radio, where we talk about a different topic each week related to women's health and functional medicine. And so people learn things that they're not going to hear about in their doctor's office. And we always have a take action challenge of something you could do today, small steps, because that's how health occurs. It is a journey, like Josh said. It's not a destination. It's not anywhere you ever get and it's done. It's an everyday, and it's all about the choices that you make, and how could you make choices that are more in alignment with your values. I really feel very strongly that knowledge is power, and that's why I do the podcast. That's why I wrote the book. That's why I do these virtual group courses with women. It's why I have a YouTube channel, so that women can be empowered with the knowledge. Because if you're going to your regular doctor's office and thinking that you're going to learn everything that you need to know about being optimally healthy, unfortunately, the truth is that's not the case. And I don't blame them, because I used to practice that type of medicine too, because that's what I was taught. But when you know better, you do better. I love that Oprah, when she says that. When you know better, you do better. And so really empowering yourself. If you're listening, with some information, you're welcome to look up my website, which is my name, which is Kyrin Dunston, DUNSTONMD.com. I have a quiz on there that you might want to take, as well as other free resources. And I'd love it if you join me on the podcast, or Brilliant Health Radio, and you will definitely learn some new and inspiring information.
Yeah, we'll have all of those details for everyone in the show notes. So don't worry about writing things down, especially if you're driving. Please don't do that. And right. I want to circle back for a second, because you mentioned something that's so powerful, like going to a regular doctor and they're giving you a clean bill of health. And I don't want to use family names in my family, but I have someone in my family that keeps coming back. Oh, he's perfect condition. And this person, it looks like he's pregnant, like 9 months plus pregnant, for as long as I've known him, with skin conditions and all of these things. But nope, perfect, clean bill of health. It blows my mind. Like, how is that even legal?
I know. I'm with you, Josh. How is it even legal? I don't. I mean, I have. It's because medicine is very politicized, is the pharmaceutical industry, the insurance industry, the food industry, and so that has become equal with health. We've all been conditioned to believe that if the doctor looks in our ears, listens to our heart and lungs, and pushes on our belly and does some quote unquote blood work. Most patients can't even tell you what blood work was in there, although there are a million different tests that could be in there, and been told that they're fine, they feel safe, that they're healthy. But what I'm here to tell you is all that means is that you don't have some ginormous cancer right now is what that means. It doesn't mean you don't have a small one. We all make cancers every day in the process of our cells duplicating, and our immune system comes behind and gets rid of it. Well, with cortisol and stress dysfunction comes immune system dysfunction, comes cancer, because our immune system can't go behind and clean it up and get rid of it. So what you really want is, I hate to say this, but I don't even go to the doctor for a quote unquote checkup anymore. And I'm not saying that anybody listening shouldn't do that, but that's just my personal preference. Is I do functional tests. I look at my hormones. I look at my functional stool tests. I look at my inflammatory markers. I look at these markers in my body that really are the root causes, because if there's going to be a problem, it's going to show up there first. And I think it is sad. And I somebody said recently, I heard them say that what you should write about is what really pisses you off. And so I talk to patients every day who say things like that, like, "Oh, I got my annual exam, and doctor says I'm fine," and I'm shaking my head, no, it doesn't mean that. And so then I get frustrated. So I'm going to write about that. And then another thing that I started writing about is when I talk to people who are acutely ill, whether they have the flu or they think they have a sinus infection or a UTI, and they always think they need an antibiotic or a steroid. And sometimes I get into arguments with people, or heated discussions, I should say, about, no, you don't need an antibiotic, and I have to educate them. But even a lot of doctors have fallen into that trap of just give people what they want, because I've got to do something. And so I can't tell them, well, you've just got a cold and it's got to run its course and there's really nothing we can do. And so I've started writing about that. I'm writing a first aid guide for people who prefer a natural approach. And so it's why antibiotics and steroids are not the answer, how they are detrimental to your health in the long run. So I always say, if you give the kids, if they're hungry and you give them Snickers for dinner, they're not hungry anymore, but was it the right thing to do? So antibiotics and steroids, they don't really fix the problem. They cause more problems. So I think that for anybody listening, what to take away is that, an educated consumer, I always say, is my best customer. So you need to educate yourself. I think gone are the days that you can just turn over your health to the medical establishment and trust that you're going to be as healthy as possible. If you believe that and you take those actions, then you're never going to be as healthy as you potentially could be. And so the time has come that you really need to educate yourself. And I know with everything else that you have to do, it seems like a daunting task. And that's why Josh is out here educating people. It's why I'm out here educating people. I think if you look to the medical professionals who are knowledgeable, who have the credentials like Josh and I do, but also have the training and expertise to have gone further, then you're going to get credible information that really could save your life, literally.
Yeah, I think that's so great. I usually ask for like 3 things that people can do to unleash their human potential, if they could do an action step today or tomorrow. So what would you do? I mean, you're already saying being educated, finding someone that knows a little bit more than the next is a great tool. What else would you tell people to do, like action steps they could do today?
Well, I would add to that first one, find somebody and stick with them, because what I see a lot of people do is they go follow this one for a while, then they go follow this one, and I'm going to try this diet and I'm going to do this, and then and they never get a consistent program, so they don't see the results. So that would be number one, is the education piece. And I would say start with what you're eating, because you literally are what you eat. Your body is made up with what you eat. And so if nothing else, get high quality organic ingredients, primarily vegetables. Don't just follow the latest fad diet. You will need to figure out what's right for you. I don't think there's one diet that's right for everyone, although I will say in generally, we all need to be eating way more veggies. So high quality ingredients, primarily vegetables, would be number 2. And number 3 is movement. If you could just ask yourself, you don't have to go join a gym, because just because you paid the membership doesn't mean you're going to use it. But what could you do to move a little bit more today? You know, sitting is the new smoking. So what could you do? Could you get a standing desk and stand while you're at work? Could you walk to work, depending on where you live, instead of driving? Could you take the stairs? I love activity trackers for that reason, that I think there is some merit to trying to get a certain number of steps in a day, or having a little reminder app or alarm on your phone to remind you to get up and move around. And I'm going to take one more if I can.
Go for it, baby.
And that would be really the stress management piece. I think that's the cornerstone of healing, because like we talked about in detail earlier, you cannot heal if you are not in a parasympathetic state, and that's the rest, digest, and heal state. I call it the Buddha state. So what's one thing you could do today to get into your Buddha state, where you could give your body a little reprieve? Maybe it's that you just go sit outside for 15 minutes and take your shoes off and put your feet on the earth and breathe in and out deeply. It could be that simple. So really looking at stress in your life.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Kyrin. This has been a great conversation. I'm finding out that we have more and more and more and more in common than I even thought before. So this was phenomenal. And I think your message came out crystal clear. And I hope and pray that more people find more people like you for their healthcare providers, so they can actually take control of their health versus just go along for the ride in their health.
Yes, because when you have better health, you can have more life.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate goal. So,
well, thank you so much. And we appreciate you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Josh. Very much appreciate being here.
Hey everyone, I hope you did enjoy that episode with Dr. Kyrin Dunston. Holy cow, what a smart woman. And I'm so glad she is helping women with natural and functional medicine to help them heal their problems naturally. So to connect with her, make sure you do check down in the show notes. We'll have all her details there. You can check on her Facebook page, on her website, and connect with all of her programs, please. So go ahead and do that. And if you have not yet given us that 5-star review on iTunes, I would greatly appreciate it. So wherever and whenever you're listening to this, have a great day, evening, or night. I'm Dr. Josh Hant. Peace out.